Hello students, welcome to iExamB and embrace the iExamB learning experience. Students, today in this video, I'll be going ahead and discussing some of the important aspects related to the Companies Act 2013 for the SEBI Grade A examination. But before we move ahead with our discussion, do remember to subscribe to our channel and press on the bell icon so that you can stay tuned and stay updated. अगर आपको कोई भी questions हो, queries हो, कोई भी doubt clarify करना हो, तो आप connect कर सकते हो through the email ID or the phone number which is displayed on the screen. Now moving ahead with our today's discussion, as I already mentioned, some of the key areas and the strategies to be adopted to study the Companies Act 2013 for the SEBI Grade A examination is what I'll be taking up and discussing in this particular video. So SEBI का already prescribed syllabus है. You have to go through the syllabus thoroughly. You have to understand which specific chapters will be asked in your exam, and mostly they stick to the syllabus which they have prescribed. So we'll be focusing on to the key areas and the strategy of going ahead and preparing for the Companies Act 2013 for the SEBI Grade A examination. तो सबसे पहले हमें syllabus clear होना चाहिए कि Companies Act में हमसे कौन-कौन से chapters पूछे जाएंगे. So if we talk about the syllabus, chapter 3 has been provided for 8, 10, then 11 and 12 and 27. So out of so many chapters in the Companies Act, only these specific chapters you have to study from the exam point of view. अब इस specific chapters में भी बहुत सारे sections हैं, but you have to focus on some of the specific things which are very important from the exam point of view. Now moving ahead with that, we'll be first looking on to the chapter 3, that is prospectus and allotment of securities. So prospectus and allotment of securities एक बहुत important chapter है. यहाँ पे आपको पूरा concept what prospectus is उसे भी समझना है, and then how the allotment of securities can be done, the conditions with respect to that, all you have to understand and you have to study for the exam. So specific अगर इसमें मैं बात करूँ तो सबसे पहले जैसा कि मैंने आपको मेंशन किया, prospectus क्या होता है वो समझना बहुत जरूरी है. उसका definition provided है Companies Act में. You have to go through the definition also so as to have a clear understanding of the concept. Then what are the contents of the prospectus, then types and its importance. क्यों ये particular document जो prospectus है ये important है, इसको Companies Act किस तरीके से define किया है, इसमें क्या क्या चीजें specifically mention होनी चाहिए, and the various types of prospectus which are there. So उसमें अगर मैं बोलूँ तो आपका abridged prospectus, shell prospectus, red herring prospectus and abridged prospectus, these are very important from the exam point of view. इससे questions आते ही हैं. Then what are the various modes of issue of securities, which all modes the companies can go ahead and adopt for issuing their securities. In that you will be studying public offer, private placement. तो public offer क्या होता है, private placement क्या होता है, right issue क्या होता है, ये सब बहुत important concepts हैं Companies Act में. Again ये सारे areas ऐसे हैं, या जो भी specifically मैं यहाँ mention करने वाली हूँ इस particular video में, वो ऐसे areas हैं which you cannot ignore at any cost. What they basically mean, कौन सी कंपनी किस टाइप ऑफ इशू के लिए जा सकती है, that is very important. Then allotment of securities, तो rules or regulations with respect to allotment process, that has to be very thorough. Then next we have chapter 4, that is share capital and debentures. तो सबसे पहले share capital होता क्या, debentures होता क्या है, is there any difference between the two, those you have to be very clear and thorough. Then we have the types of capital जो कि important है. इसमें types of capital में आपका क्या क्या आ जाएगा, authorized, issue, subscribed, paid up. So these are very important for going ahead and understanding the entire chapter. So the types of capital आपको अच्छे से पढ़ना है, समझना है. Then types of share capital क्या है, उसमें equity shares, preference shares, what do they mean, what are the concepts basically, what is their difference between the two, that you have to be very clear with. Then alteration of share capital, so all the provisions that are there with respect to going ahead and increasing, reduction, consolidation of share capital, all those you have to basically study properly, which is under the alteration of share capital. Then sweat equity shares and bonus shares, these are, you can say, one of the favorite areas from where the questions are being asked in the exam. So what are sweat equity shares, the lock-in period with respect to that, to whom these shares can be issued. Then in the same way bonus shares क्या होता है, is there any requirement with respect to the issue of bonus shares or conditions आप कह सकते हो, what are the sources from where it can be distributed, these are very important. So when you read those specific sections you will find that all those things have been properly covered under that. Then prohibition on issue of shares at discount. So issue of shares at discount जो है, this is not permitted, this is not allowed. जब आप पढ़ोगे ये particular provision को आप देखोगे उसको void माना जाता है. So to this particular rule there are certain exceptions जिसमें कि आपका sweat equity shares आता है. Buyback of shares क्या होता है, and the various conditions, restrictions or procedures you can say with respect to that, that is also important from this particular chapter. And what are debentures? So debentures उसका issue इससे भी related provisions, that is also important. Now we have declaration and payment of dividend, that is is chapter 8. तो डिविडेंड क्या होता है सबसे पहले तो वो आपको समझना जरूरी है, फिर डेफिनेशन प्रोवाइडेड है या नहीं, अगर प्रोवाइडेड है तो व्हाट डज दैट मीन, सो दैट कि पहले तो आपका पूरा चैप्टर बिगिन करने के पहले वो जो चैप्टर्स में इंपॉर्टेंट एस्पेक्ट्स है वो आपका क्लियर होना चाहिए. व्हाट डिविडेंड इज, देन हाउ इट हैज टू बी डिक्लेयर्ड, द पेमेंट हैज टू बी मेड एंड ऑल दोस थिंग्स यू हैव टू बेसिकली गो अहेड एंड स्टडी. तो डिक्लेरेशन ऑफ डिविडेंड में आपको बेसिकली जो भी रूल्स एंड प्रोसीजर्स है फॉर डिक्लेयरिंग डिविडेंड्स दैट इज इंपॉर्टेंट, वेदर इट इज मैंडेटरी फॉर द कंपनीज टू गो अहेड एंड डिक्लेयर डिविडेंड या फिर इट इज नॉट मैंडेटरी एंड ऑल दोस थिंग्स यू हैव टू thoroughly understand. Then interim dividend basically क्या होता है, what are the conditions with respect to that, how it can be declared and all that you have to study. Then what are unclaimed dividends, what are the various rules concerning the treatment or the rules with respect to the unclaimed dividends, what are to be done with that. The entire section has detailed those provisions, so वो important है आपका. Then investor education and protection fund, so ये हमारा chapter 8 हो गया. अब हम बात करेंगे audit and auditors. ये बहुत ही important chapter है, मतलब prospectus जो chapter 3 हमारा था वो बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है. शेयर कैपिटल एंड डिबेंचर्स बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है, मतलब इनसे क्वेश्चंस पूछे ही जाते हैं. एंड देन ऑडिट एंड ऑडिटर्स, मतलब दीज आर वेरी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट चैप्टर्स आई वुड सजेस्ट. तो ऑडिट एंड ऑडिटर्स की अगर हम बात करें इस पर्टिकुलर चैप्टर की, तो यहाँ अपॉइंटमेंट एंड क्वालिफिकेशन ऑफ ऑडिटर्स वो इंपॉर्टेंट है. उनका रेजिग्नेशन, रिमूवल, कोई एलिजिबिलिटी है या नहीं, क्वालिफिकेशन, डिस्क्वालिफिकेशन, ऑल दीज थिंग्स आर वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. देन सम ऑफ द पावर्स एंड ड्यूटीज विच हैव बीन गिवन टू देम, सो you should have an idea with respect to the powers and duties of the auditor. Then rotation of auditors, the provisions with respect to that is also very important. So इस particular chapter में ये और ये topic आपका very important के category में fall करता है. Then हमारा next है chapter 11, appointment and qualification of directors. So who directors are? First you have to understand that. Once you understand that, then you have to go ahead, move ahead with the provisions related to appointment of directors, उनकी qualifications and all. What are the criteria with respect to appointment? Then types of directors, qualification, disqualifications, number of directorship, ये भी बहुत important है, number of directorship. Then directors identification number, that is DIN. So what is the procedure of going ahead and obtaining the DIN number? Then duties, resignation, removal of directors. So what are the duties which the directors have, how they can resign, how they can be removed from the office, all those provisions are also important with respect to directors. Then we have meetings of the board and its powers. So what are the powers of the boards, how the meetings of the board can be conducted and all those have been detailed in this chapter. So rules for going ahead and convening the board meeting, conducting it, what is the quorum and proxy for the board meeting, that is also important. Powers of the board, the scope of authority which has been granted to the board of directors. Then committees of the board, there are various committees like the audit committee है, nomination and remuneration committee है, stakeholders committee है. So what are these various committees, the composition of that, what is the basically need of these committees, ये आपको बहुत ही clear होना चाहिए. Disclosure of interest, so it is required that the directors, they will be going ahead and disclosing any of the personal interests which they have in the contracts and arrangements which the company is going ahead and entering. So disclosure of interest is very important. They have to disclose their interest to their co-directors and all. So that is also mandated and provisions are laid down wherein it is provided कि कब वो disclosure उनको करना है अपने co-directors को and all. Loans to the directors, whether it can be given ahead or not. So Companies Act has provided various provisions with respect to that, जहाँ पे loans or guarantees to the directors by the company, they are actually restricted. So it is not prohibited basically, but there are certain restrictions. वो restrictions क्या है वो आपको बहुत clear होने चाहिए. ठीक. Related party transaction, ये particular topic जब आप पढ़ते हो तो related party transactions में कौन कौन से transactions fall करेंगे, ना केवल ये जानना जरूरी है, but who are related parties. Then when you study who are related parties, वहाँ पे आपको term मिलेगा relative also. So who are relative? So for a better understanding, ये इस तरीके से अगर आप पढ़ोगे तो it will be good for you to understand the concept. So there are certain stringent provisions with respect to the related party transactions. They require prior approval from the board and in certain circumstances from the shareholders also. So all those you have to understand that because it has been detailed under section 188 of. So this is all from chapter 12, and then we have our last chapter, that is chapter 27. So chapter 27 is talking about National Company Law Tribunal and the Appellate Tribunal, that is the National Company Law Appellate Tribunal. ठीक, तो यहाँ पे आपको उनका कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन, उनका क्वालिफिकेशन, टर्म ऑफ ऑफिस, रेजिग्नेशन, रिमूवल, ये बहुत ही इंपॉर्टेंट है, मतलब पूरे चैप्टर में जो सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट है. देन पावर्स ऑफ दीज बॉडीज, द NCLT and NCLAT, provisions with respect to what the powers have been conferred upon these tribunals and all, procedures and appeals. So basically in this important area to be focused is from which authority the appeal can be taken ahead. So basically which is the body which is having the original jurisdiction, which is having the appellate jurisdiction, is what you have to understand over here. वहाँ पे timelines दी है, time number of days भी prescribed है कि कितने दिनों में अपील की जाएगी and all. So वो भी आपका important है. So these are all what you have to study, the important areas, the key areas from the very specific chapters for the CV grade examination. Now, as I told you, I'll be moving ahead with some of the approaches, the strategies to basically study what we have discussed as important. So सबसे important है कि कुछ section summary type का आप अपने लिए बनाओ, क्योंकि Companies Act का सारा sections बहुत ही lengthy है, बहुत ही बड़ा है, करेक्ट? तो उसको पढ़ने के लिए, उसको समझने के लिए it is very important that you should go ahead and have a crisp summary of all the sections. So this is a section summary sheet which I have with respect to Companies Act, जो कि IXMB के notes में provide किया जाता है. तो इस टाइप का section summary आप prepare कर सकते हो, जहाँ पे कि बिल्कुल precise में what authorized या nominal capital is, what called up capital is. So all the important definitions are very to the point, understanding of that or what do they mean. You can basically mention on the other side the provision which are important in each of these sections, so that कि एग्जाम के टाइम में जब आपको रेफर करना हो, अंडरस्टैंड करना हो, बहुत ही हेल्पफुल हो जाएगा ये. फिर आप देख सकते हो लिफ्टिंग ऑफ द कॉर्पोरेट वेल. अब आप सोचोगे कि ये तो हमारे इंपॉर्टेंट में हमने नहीं डिस्कस किया या फिर या सिलेबस में नहीं प्रिस्क्राइब है. तो मैंने आपको पहले ही मेंशन किया था कि कुछ चीजें जो प्रिस्क्राइब नहीं है बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है, जैसे कि आपका डेफिनेशन सेक्शन में कुछ डेफिनेशंस हो गए, ठीक है, कंपनी क्या है वो डेफिनेशन, या फिर ये बोल दे अगर हम यहाँ पे लिफ्टिंग और पियर्सिंग ऑफ द कॉर्पोरेट वेल, क्योंकि ये जो कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ कंपनी है पहले तो वो आपको समझना जरूरी है, तब आप जंप ऑन टू चैप्टर 3 कर सकते हो जो कि सिलेबस में प्रिस्क्राइब है. कंपनी क्या है यही नहीं पता है तो आप कैसे समझोगे आगे की चीजें. प्रोस्पेक्टस कंपनी कब यूज करेगी, क्यों यूज करेगी, पियर्सिंग और लिफ्टिंग ऑफ द कॉर्पोरेट वेल होता क्या है. सो दीज आर द वेज यू कैन गो ahead and have a precise notes for yourself. Over here, let me tell you one more thing, that is you can go ahead and find one PDF in the description of this particular video in which you will be finding 50 important questions that is for your practice. So I'll be providing you a list of 50 questions which you can practice, and then you can check the answers also. The explanations have also been provided. So for that PDF you need to go to the description of this particular video. So that is the 50 important questions for practice you can say. Then वो हमारा section summary था. फिर जो IXMB की notes provide करते हैं तो notes भी आप देख सकते हो. See how you go ahead and prepare the summaries for yourself, the notes for yourself is very important from the exam point of view, क्योंकि बहुत lengthy चीजें हैं तो हर चीज आपको बहुत डिटेल elaborate नहीं पढ़ना. It has to be very to the point, to be very precise so that it is easy for you to revise in the exam. So जैसे आप देख सकते हो एक important topic हमारा था types of share capital. So equity share है, preference share है. equity shares में कौन कौन से bifurcations हैं, कौन कौन से types है, preference shares क्या होते हैं या किस type of preference मिलते हैं preference shareholders को. All those things have been very precisely explained in this manner. So this is some of the ways you can adopt and prepare for yourself. अब देखो मैंने आपको बोला था दिन नंबर इंपॉर्टेंट है, करेक्ट? अब दिन नंबर इंपॉर्टेंट है तो जब आप पढ़ोगे तो उसमें 2-3 सेक्शंस उसमें आपको डील कर रहे हैं. सेक्शन 153, 154, 155, 156, 157, ये सारे सेक्शंस आपका प्रोवाइड करा है दिन नंबर से इंपॉर्टेंट प्रोविजंस, करेक्ट? बट अगर आप देखो तो ये सारे सेक्शंस आप पढ़ने जाओगे बहुत डिटेल में है, बट उससे जो सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट चीजें हैं वो यहाँ आप देख सकते हो इस फॉर्म में IXMB provides to the students. So how easy it becomes for you to understand and recall and remember the things. You have to see that type of approach and strategy for yourself, ठीक है? क्योंकि जितना इंपॉर्टेंट पढ़ना और समझना उतना ही आपके लिए इन टाइप ऑफ नोट्स का होना भी जरूरी, ताकि आपको हेल्पफुल होगा रिविजन के टाइम में भी. Okay. Then appointment and reappointment of auditors. So again, you can go ahead and see how it has been made. Then NCLT and NCLAT. So constitution, the composition. If we talk about NCLT and NCLAT, you can see there is a head who is the president in NCLT. There are 2 classes of members who are judicial and technical. Then in the same way for the NCLAT, you can see there is chairperson, judicial technical members, and hears appeals against the orders of NCLAT and so on. So this is again section 408 and 410, जिसको कि क्रिस्प में आप इस तरीके से भी पढ़ सकते हो. Then we'll be discussing now the approach to cover the chapters, or you can say the strategy you can adopt. So the strategy or approach to cover the chapters, it is very important. So there has to be some strategy or approach based on which you can go ahead and study the chapters or the important topics as I have discussed in this particular video. So first of all is that you have to read the chapters thoroughly. You have to begin by reading the chapters, and you have to do that very carefully so that you can understand the provision provisions and concept very properly. Then you have to make the notes, as I told you again and again, showing those slides, that summarizing the key points, important points, provisions, and making notes for quick reference and revision, that is very important. Because सारा पढ़ लिया हमने, समझ लिया, but अगर end में आपके पास कुछ short में very to the point अगर revise करने के लिए, refer करने के लिए नहीं है, then it becomes actually a problem for you at the last moment. Then practice questions. So you have to solve the practice questions related to each of the chapters so that you can go ahead and test your understanding. क्योंकि जितना ज्यादा concept समझना important है, उसे study करना समझना important है, उतना ही आपको practice करना भी जरूरी है, because practice gives you a good hangover, the way questions can be asked in the exam, the type of options can be there in the exam and all those. Then you have to revise. So a regular revision of the chapters has to be there so that you can reinforce your understanding and all. So all these are some of the strategies or approaches you can go ahead and adopt so as to cover the chapters or important provisions of the company's act for your SEBI grade A exam in a very systematic manner. Okay. So with this, we come to an end of our discussion in this particular video. But subscribe to our channel and stay tuned so that you can prepare 50% faster with us at iExample.